Hello and welcome back to Pandemic Playground with Dave. So today we got a bit of a experiment for you guys, and that is testing around with diagonal thrusters. Alright, so we're going to be in a semi-creative mode using Alt F10. And we're going to create a small ship or small grid ship and test out diagonal thrusters. I've been meaning to do something like that for a long time. I know we did a lot of vector thrusting at one point. So the minimal thrusters you could possibly have is basically 2 with vector thrusting. So it spins from top-wise horizontally, and you can spin it on a vertical stance. And that usually works pretty well with gravity. But what if you want to do something a little different in terms of doing everything diagonal? All thrusters could be like up, down, left, right, forward, and backwards, but let's set a diagonal to it and see how that goes. Let's do a quick, simple ship. And since we're in space, we're going to do pretty much ion thrusters if possible. So just the 2 batteries there. We need a gyroscope if anything. We will need a programming block for a script as well. You could probably get away with doing it without a script, but I think the script will make it a little bit easier. So what I was thinking of diagonal thrusters is basically your most basic thing in terms of putting thrusters. Let's just say small thrusters, like so. We'll put a whole bunch of these right here. We do like 1 on each side, basically. So 1 here, 1 here, which I should have done a little differently. But yeah, I'm trying to do 4 on each side to see how well it works with diagonal thrusters, or does it even work properly. We're just putting them right here, and it's gonna be that way. All right, so that's your 4 main thrusters. We're gonna do ion thrusting, so let's pick out the best looking one, which is this one, which I already had. All right, so we're gonna do a small thruster right here. Right here, and here. So that is our main thrusters right there. I think 4 we could probably get away with. We could see how we could get less than 4 if necessary, just to see if that's even possible. So what we're gonna do with the settings here, we're gonna go to hinges, all the hinges. I think hopefully I had it all set up correctly. So we could do upper at 45, lower at -45 if anything. And we do that to it. So a little bit of velocity, shared inertia if we need to. Probably don't need it. Hinge lock, we'll leave everything else alone. So the main point is this. So you have your downward thrust right here and here. And you have your upward thrust and forward thrust, downward thrust, and backward thrusting right over here. So that's kind of the point of making these diagonal thrusters. You could actually reverse this one if need be. So then you have more downwards pressure than upwards. So we could just reverse that, because the way we set it up, we could just reverse it with some velocity. So negative velocity. And we'll bring it up this way to -45 degrees, and that should be perfect. Or in this case, it won't be perfect because this gyroscope is in the way. So we'll just get rid of that. That's fine. All right, we're on -45 right there. So that's fine. That's working. That's perfectly exactly where I want it to be. So then we have our downward thrust, upward thrust, left, right, forward, and backwards. The most minimum we can possibly get, I think. And of course, you could design around it to make it look better. But let's just see what that's gonna look like in terms of flying the ship with all diagonal thrusters. So generally speaking, without diagonal thrusters, you would have up, down, left, right, forward, and backwards. A total of 6 thrusters. So minimize that to 4 doing diagonal thrusters. That'd be awesome. And obviously, you don't have to do it this way. In this case, we don't necessarily need this to look weird like this. We could just have this going backwards if anything, but we're just testing it out to see if this even works well enough for flight. So let's give it a go. So obviously, none of this works without a script. Unless you do thruster overrides. So if you did thruster overrides, then yeah, then this thing would definitely fly. But you have to control them individually and precisely, which is possible, but why mess with that when we can easily add a script? And I'll leave the script down in the description below. And that script is going to be this right here, Whips Subgrid Thruster Manager. Right, so load up the script on the programming block, check the code if need be. I generally try to do dampeners on-off toggle, which is right here. So you need to copy basically this right here without the quotes. Or dampener switch, either one. Hit OK. Close that out. And when you're in the ship and hit G, you want to grab the programming block and do run. And then just paste it right here. Dampeners toggle. Hit confirm. And that way you can toggle dampeners on and off when you're running the script for the thrusters down on hinges, rotors, pistons, or whatever it can manage in that sense. All right, so now you're ready for flight. So let's see how well this does. So if we're flying forward, it looks like it's quite slow. Obviously, we probably need a lot more thrusters, but we're just testing out with this little bit here. And we're getting forward momentum pretty well. We have backward momentum that's working well. As you see, that's slowing us down. If we do downwards, both are running down. And we are actually moving. So you see some of the kilometers moving in the GPS pointers. Or if I even did this, GPS 1, you see that we're actually flying away from it. And to stop it, we're going to fly up. And that seems to work out pretty well. So obviously, right now we don't have enough speed, so we could add a ton more ion thrusters here. All right, added 3 on each side, basically. And now we'll be flying a lot faster. Here you go. So if you wanted to target, let's just say an asteroid right over there, we can fly towards it, and we can hit the toggle on and off, so our front ones don't maneuver or stop us a bit. And there we go. I mean, it's not as fast as a flat horizontal thruster, but it works pretty well, it looks like. So we're close to 100 meters per second, but then we hit dampeners on again. You see the stopping power that we have here. And what's interesting is that the upward thruster is actually pulling some weight too when it comes to the stopping power as well. So that's pretty interesting how that works. But again, left and right momentum or movement seems to be working pretty well. And some of the diagonals are working in conjunction with it. So this could definitely work out fairly well as in terms of adding the least amount of thrusters. Obviously, this is not the best looking thing because of this right over here. But I'm glad it works. I don't know why I've never tried. I'm pretty sure people have tried it previously. And I don't know. For me, I just generally don't see it too often, I guess. But it looks like a workable idea when it comes to a diagonal thrusters. Another design that I was thinking about was basically to do 2 in the back right over here. And we could layer it out with the thrusters. So the thrusters are going to be, let's say, what if we did something like this, where we have left momentum and forward momentum, we have right momentum and forward momentum. So this gives us extra pushing power forward, and it's gonna give out left and rights. Of course, we'll leave the upwards momentum here, but we could technically change that up as well. Two different sides to it. So we need a backwards and we need upwards and downwards in this case. So to make it design well enough, I think we just got to get rid of some of these right over here. In this case, it still works out with 4 directional thrusters. So you have this one is diagonal. You have downwards, upwards, and backwards. I mean, that should work pretty well. It's just more of a design aspect here. So we could go forward pretty fast. It's not too bad. We can go down, up, even backwards fairly good. And you don't have to deal with the awkward side thrusters, which I usually deal with a lot. So when I say awkward side thrusters, sometimes you can't find a good spot for it. So you end up putting it something like that, which is sticking out more than you would probably like. So with the diagonal design, it actually makes it look a little bit different and a bit decent. So that kind of gets rid of the side thrusting that I always have trouble adding. And even just this little ship here, it looks pretty cool with it being diagonal like that. I mean, we could even work with 40 degrees instead of 45-degree angle. But a 45-degree angle will give it a nice little side thrust here. I mean, it's not a significant push of side thrust, obviously, but it's not too bad. I mean, we could do the same design up front if we wanted to for the backward thrust and give it more side thrusting. We could definitely try that as a possibility. All right, so there you go. So it looks a little bit awkward at the moment, but all we need is, so we have our left thrusters, then I have times 2 of the diagonal. Actually, it's not that bad of a look. I mean, we could definitely move this elsewhere, but we would have the forward momentum and then backwards momentum pretty well. And of course, we have our left momentum, which is moving pretty fast. And then we can stop on the other side. So a little bit of an X directional type of thing. Gyroscope's a little bit heavy on the power. So let's just say 20%. And here we see that we can fly pretty quickly towards an unknown signal now. So we have forward thrusting, we have stopping power, we have left and right momentum, everything like that. So let's toggle off dampeners and then toggle them back on. And here you see we're slowing down pretty well. And we could easily move sideways or even diagonal in this case really well. So that's a pretty nifty design, a little bit of cool nifty testing to see if diagonal thrusters do work. And also here's another type of design we could work with, having the diagonal thrusters and then the up and downs attached to it, which should work out pretty well. Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm not sure what is making that sound, but it might be on the hinges. But you see here, moving left and right is pretty good. And we could circle around this unknown signal fairly easily. And the thing flies pretty nice. So adding some diagonal thrusters would be a nice design and functional design. The only flaw that we have here is that clangy sound that I just hear from the hinges, even though you do a hinge lock and everything like that. But once again, this thing flies really well, and definitely something I want to try in the future for different builds, because this is working well and it really does look cool. All right, so with diagonal thrusters, we cover 4 angles in a way. That covers the up, down, left, right, forward, and backwards using 4 directions. But what if we want to go a little bit less than that? We could potentially add a design where it's both rotors and hinges to take care of most directions, to be honest. let's see how we can do something like that. If we add a rotor on one side here along with a hinge and a thruster, and let's just say this thruster is going to be at 45-degree angle, either negative or positive. It doesn't really matter at this point. Let's just do positive. Lock it. Nope. Let's do this at 0 velocity first, then lock it. There's a bit of an issue there. Okay, so that gives us the upwards and left direction. But what if we angle the rotor a little bit towards the back? So then covers 3 directions. So is that the angle of 320? I think so. And it's a positive 320. So what if we did our upper limit as 320? Or is it 315? I think it's 315. Let's just do that for now. All right, so 315 is going to give us that kind of look to it. That should cover upwards, forward, and left. And we probably have to do the same on this side to give the right movement. And gives us extra upwards momentum as well in this case. Right, so that should give us our right angle, our right momentum upwards and forwards. So now we just need one for stopping power. So that's backwards and downwards. Yeah, backwards and downwards. So how do we do that? I think we could just get away with just a hinge in this case. So we could put it kind of right over here with just a generic hinge and a thruster. So we could probably add more than one in this case. So we could just do something like that. And if we want to design it out, we could just do an angled block here or a slope block like so. And then this would have kind of the same aspect, 45-degree angle. And there you go. So then that gives us our forward, upwards, right, left, backwards, and downwards. So that's 3 different angles to it. Although this looks terrible. This looks decent in terms of design. And if we, I think we have to rerun the script. Let's just do that just in case. And now we should have decent momentum going forward. Not a lot, because we should put a lot more thrusters on there, but we have the forward thrusting. We have the side thrusting, it looks like. Yes, we do. And we have the stopping power as well. So if we decide to add a ton more thruster to it, it should give us better momentum. But designing this out, it looks to be a little bit harder than what we had before. But all you need is the 3 directions in terms of diagonal pieces here, so that's not too bad. If we want more stopping power, we could add one more thruster down here. Or actually, you know what? We can get rid of this and potentially just add it over here. Obviously, if we did this, there's a weak point here. The weak point being if you hit the thruster over here by the rotor hinge, say goodbye to your momentum in that case. But I think if we did it this way, one on each side, like so, would give us everything we need in terms of thrusting power. So would this design work? So in terms of the directions, we have our upwards, right, and forward, more forward and more downwards, and more directional? No. Yes, actually. This would consider to be right thrusting. And this one would be... Is it left thrusting? Yeah, so we could definitely do that. And all we have to do is have 2 rotors, 2 hinges, and these are all our thrusting potential here. And with this design, we could potentially add more. So 3 on each side, basically. And this might actually work really well in terms of the momentum that we get out of it. All right, so that looks decent. You could probably build out the cockpit and the batteries hidden and have that stick out just like this and look pretty decent. I mean, you still have space for another thruster right here, but hopefully it doesn't burn the battery. It might actually, based on the angle. But you could always do this angle, but then that's just adding more. We could put it on this side like so, but I think that might touch the battery a bit. Maybe we test it with a block, kind of like this direction. Yeah, that should and will likely burn the batteries a bit, but we could cover this up with blocks like this. You have a decent thruster design right over there that's just sitting at the back end, which could have been right in the middle instead of towards the end like that. But I think this is going to give us all the direction that we need. Hopefully. Alright, we just recompile it and run it. And let's just head to a direction. Let's just say, well, we can go to another unknown signal. Here we got forward momentum, and that's actually pretty fast with dampeners on. So if I turn it off, it's probably even faster. So we're going to head towards that direction right over there. And we're already 100 meters per second. And if we turn on dampeners, it slows down relatively quickly, but it does give that clanging sound. And you see that we're pulling downwards a little bit by a pitch, but it seems to be working okay. Okay. All right, maybe not so much. I'm not sure why we're not slowing down anymore. That didn't work out as much as I thought it would. So we're not necessarily slowing down at all, because it seems like it's playing like its dampeners are off for some reason. I'm not sure why, but if we change directions like so, we would slow down. But the forward thrusters is not slowing down. Actually, we're not really slowing down that well. I'm curious to see why that is. So flying right, flying right works okay. All right, so this design may not be the best. We don't seem to be slowing down much at all. Let me just be sure and recompile and run this thing. Or are we out of battery? No, we have tons of batteries. So this is not working as I thought it would. It could be the fact that it's on 2 subgrid pieces. That's probably and likely the issue. I'll just add a few more batteries just to see if it works out. But flying forward, it definitely works out pretty well, as you see here. But it doesn't seem to wanna stop. See, now we're kind of free floating a little bit, but we are dropping off in terms of meters per second now. But it tends to stop at a certain point. So right there, 36.3. And it doesn't seem like it's slowing down anymore. What if I go backwards or fly backwards? It's increasing my meters per second. Is it potentially because I flipped over for one side. Nope. We're at 14 looking forward, and there's no stopping, it looks like. And if I fly backwards, it doesn't seem like we're stopping at all. So what is making that happen? So interesting enough, that didn't work out that well. But what if I just add, let's just say, a backwards thruster right here? And then that way we have to have 3 different directions. We have our rotor and hinge combination left and right, and then we have our backward thrust. Although I kind of position them both in different orders, but let's just do that. So that would stop us a lot better. So downward thrusting works okay with the minor fact that we are going diagonal. But easy to control that off, no problem. And yeah, so the stopping power with this angle is not so great, but it does help a bit. So now if we try the same exact thing, turn off dampeners on our ship and through the programming block, we can fly forward pretty quickly. And if we want to stop, turn the dampers on. You see we're pitching down a little bit, so that's a little bit of an issue. But again, easy to control off of it. But that should stop us fully now with the front backward thrusters. The ones on the hinge and rotor doesn't seem to do anything in terms of stopping power. We could probably change the angle in terms of where it can go, but that's going to require us to do like a rotor locking on off situation and increase or decrease velocity. I think we're looking at this one here. So that one right there should give us that stopping power we need. So if by chance if we need to reverse the rotor just to give us some more stopping power, we could do that. And I think it's going to stop us fully in this case, right? Hopefully. Let's take a look. Yes, it does. So if we went for the rotor, I don't even know which rotor is which, but we do reverse here and reverse here. And here you see we're back in its positioning where we go forward, but it's going to slow down a bit and not stop us all the way. And then we just got to do a bit of reversing here. And that should slow us down a bit too. And of course, this whole situation where we do the reversing is perfect, because if you did reversing on that, we do on the hinges as well if we wanted to. So we want to get all different directions we can, as long as we set up everything correctly. So velocity 4 for everything, rotors, hinges, and everything like that. So what works well in space is not necessarily needing all these directional pieces, but we could actually reverse our rotors correctly. And I didn't do it correctly this way. But that still kind of works out. So now we have our forward thrusting. But we have no side thrusting, right? Oh, we do have side thrusting in this case. Side thrusting and backward thrustings. That actually works really, really well. We just don't have downwards and upward thrusting. Well, we have upward thrust, but we don't have downward thrust in this case. But if we really, really needed to, we just flip our hinges like so. And now we have downward thrust. So really, you just need these 2 directional things with a rotor combination with a hinge, and you have all directions that you need, but you do need to kind of position your hinges and rotors in a specific position in degrees. I think if I change the degrees a little bit, we might have better stopping power. So I'm thinking if we did, let's see, rotors, our maximum here is 315. Let's just say 280, maybe 320, and this one would be, this one being either 40 or 30. might give us that stopping power that we need for the front to work well. No, it still kind of stops a bit. So maybe we do 30 for this one. And we'll add 10 more here, so it's 330 in this case. So we still have our forward thrusting, side thrusting, and now we just need the stopping power for the backward thrusting. It doesn't seem to want to work in this case, although it has the direction for it to really stop, but it's not doing its job for whatever reasons. So I guess you definitely do have to kind of do this whole fixing your rotors. I don't know why my left one's rotating too much like that, but we could probably fix that. Okay, so I think we need this to be 330. And this could be 360. There we go. So then when we do reverse, it's a short distance. There we go. All right, perfect. So once again, it doesn't seem to work out exactly as planned, but doing this version of it works out okay because you have your forward thrusting, your stopping power, your upward thrust, and if you need downward thrusting, we just flip it over like this with the hinges, and then we got downward thrust. And if you want to go crazy, then throw in a rotation on the rotors, and that should work out okay. Actually, this angle, no, for some reason this angle doesn't really work well for the stopping power up front. Oh, look at that. That's not stopping either now. So it's a bit of a not a glitch, but it definitely doesn't want to stop going forwards like this. So let's bring that back up this way. So we go forward and it's gonna stop. Okay, so I'm not sure why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but this seems to be a bit of an issue on it, as this does seem to work fairly well. Yep, that works really well. It's the angling piece that doesn't work that well for the backward thrust. So here we have backward thrusting, and we still got that 1 meter per second that's not stopping for some reason. And yep, we're just mimicking the same issues here and there. But I guess if you play around the hinges, it works. Not sure exactly why it does that, but diagonal thrusters work pretty well, I think. If I can incorporate with a future design, I definitely will try and do that. But this is a good test to see how well it works. I mean, it works, but has its kinks. Of course, just with the minimum of 2 directional things, meaning the rotor combination with the hinge. I mean, you could always add an extra thruster or so up front or whatever the case may be if you need the stopping power, so that you don't have to do that. But I just want to play with the most minimal thing. It's just kind of like vector thrust in a way. But in the past, I'm not sure if it has been fixed or not yet. It's been a while since I played with it. Didn't necessarily work really, really well in a non-gravity instance. So playing around with this definitely works. But again, it's actually pretty fun to maneuver these things like this too. To kind of try to make it work. But it definitely flies really well. And it looks pretty cool to be able to do this kind of transformer like this movement to it. As you see here. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this experiment. It definitely was a interesting one for me, at least, to learn to see if diagonal thrusters do work. And like I said, they do work with some kinks. If you want to do at the minimum the 2 positionings with the combination of rotor and hinges and a whole bunch of thrusters. I think if we add a few more going this way, but it's going to burn the ship itself a bit, it would be able to stop the momentum of this ship itself, but just playing around with the hinges like this, for whatever reasons, does help slow it down and stop the ship. It might be because the way it's maneuvering or stopping, it gives it a bit of a diagonal push to it. It's why the backward thrusting is not working as well. But just putting the hinges like that, it could work. But again, you do need to add the script in order for it to work. But it's kind of like the vector thrust. You just throw in a script and everything like that. But at least this works outside or in a non-gravity environment like space. But hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe. And of course, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.